بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم. اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to continue our study of training and education in Islam by the late Ayatollah Mutahari, rahmatullah alayh. You remember in the first session we said that this book includes two series of lectures on Islamic education that he had. The first series that we, alhamdulillah, finished and completed was given to teachers of religious education, Islamic education in schools. The second that, inshallah, we are going to start today is another series that Ayatollah Mutahari rahmatullah alayhi had, independent from the first one, for medical doctors. Before revolution, one of the groups who were very interested in Islamic lectures and Islamic thought were Anjuman Islamiye Pezeshkan, Islamic Society of Medical Doctors. It was not a governmental organization. It was like a NGO. So some medical doctors and students, professors who had interest in Islam, they used to get together and invite a scholar to give them lectures, and they did other activities. We had also Anjuman Islamiye Muhandesan, for the engineers, Islamic Society for Engineers. They also had such initiatives. So from today, we will start the series that he gave to medical doctors and students. Some of the things overlap, some of the things are different. The first lecture is entitled پرورش جسم و پرورش استعداد عقلانی. Cultivating or developing or educating body, physical education, and cultivating rationality or rational capacity. To make it simple, we gave title of Cultivating Rationality to our lecture today, because this is the main part of the discussion. He starts first with an introduction. He says, some schools of education and training, they consider human beings as materials that they have at their disposal, and they want to work on them and transform them into what suits their purposes. For example, if you want, I don't know, welfare, if you want, I don't know, progress in industry, whatever, they see how they can educate and train human beings to reach their ideals. If they have, I don't know, militant philosophy, if they want, to expand their countries, for example, based on that, they make human beings compatible or suitable for their purposes. They are not that much interested in human beings themselves and see what's the best for human beings. They are interested in their own purpose. He says, for example, some people who, grow animals, like, sheep and goats. So sometimes for male animals, they see it's better if they are not fertile. They can more quickly, grow and, put on weight. So they don't think that this animal is better to remain natural and normal and healthy and fertile. They think what is good for the purpose. Or in the past, some kings used to make some of their servants, some of their maids, servants or slaves, unfertile, so that if they go inside and meet their wives or daughters or mothers, there is no attraction, there is no sexual interest in them. I don't remember now the exact term that in English can be used. In Farsi we say akhte kardan. So it's a way of not only stopping fertility, but also it would lead to not feeling that much attraction towards the opposite sex. So they had a special interest. They wanted to use these people for their own interest. They didn't think what is better for them. They thought what is better for those who had that kind of interest. Another way of looking at education is to say, we are at the service of human beings. We want to help them grow and reach their potentials. We don't have any hidden or explicit agenda for ourselves. We just want to let them grow like a good gardener. A good gardener looks at the trees and flowers and their potentials, tries to prepare the environment, provide with whatever is needed so that they reach their potentials. Islamic education is of the second type, to see what potentials are there in human beings and help them grow. Of course, here we have to understand different potentials and have a kind of organization, because sometimes people grow in one aspect or two aspects and don't pay attention to other aspects, and this would not be a balanced growth. We have to grow in different areas, but of course we should have also priorities. It's not that every growth is the same. Those things that are in human beings as potentials, some of them are shared with animals, or they are related to our body. They are jismani, they are corporeal or physical. Some of them are exclusive to human beings. Those which are related to our body are important, of course, but they shouldn't be given priority. Ayatollah Mutahari says there is no doubt that Islam is interested and encourages us to look after our body and physical health. So in Islamic literature, in Farsi, we have two different expressions. One is to say parvarish jism, The other is tan parvari. Although they look very much similar, because parvaresh is the same, just the order seems that has changed. Parvaresh jism means developing or growing body, if you want to translate literally. Tan parvari also means the same, because tan jism the same. But they totally mean different things. If you look after your health, diet, you have physical exercise, this is good. This is parvarish jism. And there is no doubt that Islam is in favor of this. Even our fuqaha say, they have general rule, that even if we don't have any specific ayah or hadith, suppose there is no specific ayah. If you have a specific ayah or hadith, what we follow. If there is no specific ayah or hadith, but we know something for sure is harmful for our body, for our health, and this harm is considerable, because Islam doesn't want to make life difficult for us and say, even if it is very little harm, it becomes haram. For example, we know sugar is harmful, but we don't say, using sugar is haram. We say using it in excess, using it in the way that has considerable harm, it becomes prohibited. Anything which has considerable harm for health is prohibited. We say ضرر معتد به. معتد به means something which is considerable. Sometimes maybe a faqih or some fuqaha, maybe they are not sure. They may not issue fatwa. They may leave it to the mukallaf. For example, is smoking tobacco haram? Maybe they don't specifically say yes, because at that time it was not very clear that it was harmful. But now many fuqaha say it's haram. Some used to say to start is haram, but for people who are used to it, old people, it's okay. Some people say if it leads to addiction is haram, but these are all secondary. If you ask any faqih that I am sure that this is considerably harmful for my health, is it halal or haram? He says, if you are sure, you should avoid it. And today, as I said, now some of Maradi even give fatwa. In the past, there was no cigarette, or some of the chemicals that today they use for smoking or addiction, etc. We don't have them specifically mentioned in the Quran and Hadith, but the general rule is there. Anything that is considerably harmful to your health, to your body, is haram. On the other hand, there are things that they may recommend, some fruits, some vegetables, they may recommend because they are useful for our health. So, is in Islam looking after your body and health something good or bad? Definitely something good, something necessary. We should not neglect our body, our health, and say, we just focus on spirituality. No. And you see, one of the things that we consider as merits for people like Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam was that he had a strong body. He was able to do things that people with weak body could not do. So it's not a sign of, weakness, or, it's not neutral. No, it's good if you are strong. But this is not the main thing. Before we go to the main thing, I should explain the term tan parvari that we have in literature. Tan parvari is different. Tan parvari is that instead of looking after your body and health and do exercises, do some sports, some walking, some handwork, etc., you just feed your body and just relax and do things that you enjoy, because most of our physical pleasure is connected to our body, if not all. So there are people that they eat what they like, or they eat too much, they want to improve, for example, their muscles, so they think in this way they become stronger. They say, I shouldn't worry, I shouldn't do anything, serious. I just want to, grow my body. Or I want to sleep as much as like. Actually, many times this is not even good for the body and health. In the mid-term or long-term, even their body would be affected. If Amir al-Mu'minin was strong in his body, it was not because he was sleeping a lot or eating, lots of, I don't know, proteins, etc. Or hydrocarbons, etc. So this is one point. It's not a very difficult issue. We know that Islam loves us to look after our body and health and be fit and healthy as much as possible. Of course, sometimes we become ill and we don't have any control over it, but we should do our best. Then we go to those potentials, those capacities that we have for things which are exclusive to human beings. And here he talks about aql, istidad aqlani, intellectual or rational capacity that we have. And he says, in some religious traditions, they find conflict between aql, intellect or reason, and religion and religiosity and spirituality. They don't encourage people to think, to study intellectual sciences, to rationalize, to argue, to do reasoning. Islamically, not only we don't have any conflict between reason and revelation, or reason and religion in general, but also we have lots of emphasis on aql and developing our rationality. There is no sense of conflict or rivalry, to the extent that Imam Qadim alayhi salam says, aql is a hujjah of Allah. In the hadith of Hisham ibn Hakam, that today we will inshallah quote some parts of it. Imam Qadim alayhi salam said, Inna lillahi ta'ala ala nasi hujjatain. Allah has two types of hujjah, two types of ways to communicate his will to us. Hujjatan zahira, وهي الأنبياء والرسل والأئمة, وحجة باطنة وهي العاقلة. External hujjah are people that communicate the will of Allah to us, prophets, messengers, imams. These are hujjah of Allah. Ibrahim was a hujjah of Allah. Musa alayhi salam was hujjah. Isa alayhi salam was hujjah. Rasulullah was hujjah. Imams, infallible imams are hujjah. But we have internal hujjah. We have a prophet inside us. And that is aql, our reason. So there is no conflict. Indeed, aql is considered to be a reliable source for understanding the truth, and actually the starting point for coming to religion. It is through aql that we evaluate claims of the prophets and find out what the true revelation, what is the true message. So aql is very, very important for us. Can you hear me? I see the picture is frozen. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you, yes.
Okay. Alhamdulillah.
I don't know why it's frozen. You can continue if something happens, I will let you know.
Okay, thank you. Then he refers to some passages from hadith of Imam Qadim to Hisham ibn al-Hakam. We referred to this hadith before. This is a very important hadith. This is available in the beginning of Al-Kafi, Kitab al-Aql wal-Jahl. And alhamdulillah, we had 11 lectures on this hadith in the Shrine of Lady Ma'asuma. It's available on YouTube, Imam Qadim on Intellect. So you can, read online, you can watch the lecture. If you want to know more about this beautiful hadith of Imam Qadim alayhi salam to Hisham ibn Hakam, who was a person who was trained for theological discussions. And he was very clever, very intelligent, well-trained, and people could not, win him in discussions and debates. Even Ayatollah Mutahari quotes from Abu al-Huzayl, and he says that Abu al-Huzayl, Allah, who was a very outstanding theologian, he says that he found in a book, every person was afraid of doing debate with Abu al-Huzayl al-Allah, but Abu al-Huzayl himself says, or was hesitant to do debate with Hisham ibn Hakam. So he was a top theologian from other schools, but he was himself reluctant to do debate with Hisham because Hisham was very, capable in debating theological discussion. So Imam Qadim alayhi salam refers to this ayat 17 and 18 of Surah Zumar. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم فبشر عباد الذين يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه أولئك الذين هداهم الله وأولئك هم أولو الألباب. Allah says, give good news, give bishara to those servants of mine who listen to the word and choose the best. Those are the people that Allah has guided, and those are ulul albab. Then he explains. I will explain what is ulul albab. I intentionally didn't translate because Ayatollah Mutahari has a point here. Bishara should be given to the people who are happy to listen. Listening is a sign of rationality. Those who don't want to listen, their rationality has not grown. They listen to what is said or written, the words, maybe oral, verbal, maybe written. And then they don't quickly accept or reject. They think, they process, and choose the best. It means that they have ability to discern. So those who have no ability to discern, they shouldn't, speak. Sorry, they shouldn't listen to the words that may confuse them. This is for those who have ability to discern. And everyone should try to reach the point that has ability to discern. So someone who has this ability should listen. It is said by someone we love, someone we don't love, someone we know, someone we don't know. We should look at what is said rationally, objectively, assess it, evaluate it. If there is something good, we should accept. أولئك الذين هداهم الله. These are the people that Allah has guided. Although this is something rational, but it is considered also as a divine guidance. So Allah can guide through aql. If we are rational, this is guidance. وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمْ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. Ulul albab means those who possess lub. Albab is plural for lub. Many times lub is translated as brain. But Ayatollah Mutahari says that it seems lub is not necessarily
Yes, Aga is disconnected, so he's trying to connect it again. So please wait for a few minutes. Thank you. Yes, Aga is facing some difficulty during connecting on Zoom, so please wait for a few minutes more. So he's trying.
Salamun alaikum. Salamun alaikum. Can you hear me?
Wa alaikum salam.
Wa alaikum salam.
Very sorry, I had to restart my computer, and now I hope you can see me. Okay.
Yes, Aga. You can
Sorry.
continue.
Okay. I don't know how much you heard me. Did you hear me about the lobe when I was explaining about lobe and brain, or I don't
Yes,
know when?
Aga.
Okay. Ayatollah Mutahari says that ulul albab means those who have lobe, because albab is plural for lobe. Lobe sometimes is translated brain, human brain. But he says lobe is more general than human brain. Lobe means core. You know, in Farsi, we have maghz. Maghz is brain. But maghz can be used also for other things. For example, we say maghz girdu, walnut, okay, has also maghz. So then actual nut, when you peel it, is called maghz girdu. Or maghz peste, maghz badam, pistachio, almonds. The actual nut, we call it maghz, because it is the core, it's inside. So maghz is not only for brain. For just brain, we have mukh. Although mukh also in Arabic can be used for other things like ad-du'a or mukhul ibadah. Dua is the core of ibadah. So what he wants to say is this. He says, it's not just these are the people who have brain, who use their brain. It can be more fundamental than that. If we say lob means core. So human beings who use their aql, who use their brain, although brain is not the same as aql, but brain is an instrument, a nearest thing in our body to the aql. So those who use their brain are the people who have maghz, who have core. Imagine if you take a walnut, but it's void, it's empty. Max, puk. In Farsi, we say puk, means without, something inside, it's void. Sometimes also, if someone has, no good, usage of aql. He doesn't use his brain. They say kallepuk. They say someone whose head is empty. Okay, so what he wants to say, he says that ulul albab is a very delicate way of saying that there are human beings who use aql. This is like a walnut which has nut, a pistachio which has pistachio inside. And people who don't use aql, these are empty, these are void of humanity. So humanity is very much a matter of rationality. What makes us human beings is not what we share with animals. What we share with animals doesn't make us human beings, because then they had also to be human beings. What makes us human beings is what extra we have, what additional we have, what exclusive we have. And for sure, part of it is rationality. Inshallah, we come back to the hadith of Imam Kazim alayhi salam. But before that, he mentions some other hadith. So he mentions this ayah, then he starts talking about some hadith, then inshallah we come back to that hadith. He says, in Shia hadith or hadith from Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, we have lots of references to aql. In many of our books like Al-Kafi, the very first section is Kitabul Aqli wal Jahl, the book on reason or intellect, and Jahl, ignorance. And ignorance is not just not to know. Ignorance can be not to know or can be not to act rationally. Therefore, you can be very learned person, but not, free from ignorance. Amirun says, Robba aliman qatalahu jahlu. There are many ulama that are destroyed by their jahl. So jahl is either not to know, or you may even know, but not to act rationally. This is why we say Kitabul Aqli wal Jahl, not Kitabul Ilmi wal Jahl. Kitabul Aqli wal Jahl. Ilmi wal Jahl is knowledge and ignorance, but Aqli, reason and ignorance. He says, some people, even if they are not very good with the Shia, they have mentioned this, that in Shia culture in general, there is more interest in reasoning, and intellectual sciences such as philosophy. For example, there is a famous Egyptian writer, Ahmad Amin, contemporary writer, Ahmad Amin. He has books, Fajrul Islam, Zuhal Islam, Zuhrul Islam, Yawmul Islam, Morning of Islam, Midday of Islam, things like this. Altogether, these are 9 volumes. He has very good discussions in these books, but unfortunately, sometimes also he has made mistakes in these books. And although he is not a person who has any kind of favor for Shia, but he makes some good points as well. One of the things that he says, al-haqqu an al-falsafata bit-tashayyu'i al-saqu minha bit-tasannun. He says the truth is that philosophy is more attached to Shia than Sunni Islam. He mentions also as an example that in Islamic era, philosophy was developed among the Shia, and he says that before Fatimids ruled Egypt, there was not that much philosophy there. When Fatimids ruled Egypt, because he's Egyptian himself, philosophy developed. When Fatimids left, again philosophy went down. And then he says, Al-haqqu an al-falsafata bit-tashayyu'i al-saqu minha bit-tasannun. In some lectures, I have explained that I believe there are three characteristics of Shia Islam. One is rationality, one is spirituality, and one is search for justice. And I have explained, you can find the lectures. Also, there's a chapter on this in the book Shia Islam, Origins, Faith, and Practices. This doesn't mean that all the Shia are rational. No, all the Shia are not rational. This also doesn't mean that non-Shia are not rational. No, there are many non-Shia who may be rational. But as a general characteristic, as something clearly said by our leaders and is available in our historical manifestations, is that in large, the Shia community is very interested in rationality. There are exceptions, of course. He says, we have many hadiths. He says once he tried to collect all relevant hadiths. In that time, they didn't have, these softwares. They had to, look page by page the books. He said, I found 20 different versions of this hadith. Al-hikmatu dhallatul mu'minah. Hikmah, wisdom, is what a mu'min has lost. Something that belongs to you, then you lose it and you look for it. Aynama wajadaha akhadha. Then he says, some say, walau min ahl khudul hikmah, walau min ahl al-nifaq, or walau min mushrik, and things like this. Aynama wajadaha fahuwa ahaqqu biha. Basically, hikmah is something that a mu'min is very acquainted with, feels very attached to it, says it's, mine, I am to find it. Where is it now? He may find it with a munafiq, even ahl al-nifaq. If a hypocrite has some wise ideas, it's not his. It belongs to all. We have to get from. If a mushrik, a polytheist, if you are not able to discern, that's different. Don't put yourself in danger. But if you are a person who can discern what is wise, there is no limit in who can be approached to get the wise ideas from them. Maybe they have taken from some other sources because they are not wise. No one without certain characteristics can be wise, but some people have got access to some wise ideas. We should be happy to learn. One of the things that we find in Islam is encouraging people to seek knowledge. In a society which knowledge was not that important, Islam so much encouraged about seeking knowledge, even if it requires traveling to China. Seek knowledge even up to China. And then he says something very interesting. Please listen very carefully. You know that in the time of Imam Sadiq, and around that time, the caliphs started encouraging people to translate works by Greek philosophers and maybe Iranian thinkers, etc. And also some people did that. For example, Ibn Muqaffa translated Mantiq, logic of Aristotle. Later, in the time of Ma'mun and Harun Abbasi, Harun al-Rashid, and his son Ma'mun, they founded Baytul Hikmah, House of Wisdom. And major task of this House of Wisdom was to translate works of other cultures, civilizations into Arabic. Although some people are very suspicious about this, and they think it was not just because of interest in knowing and curiosity. Maybe they wanted to bring these ideas to have something to offer against Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Maybe they wanted, to have, kind of alternative or lots of alternatives for the true teachings of Islam. Anyway, there are discussions here. But Ayatollah Mutahari says that based on his research, he has not found even a single hadith that our imams criticized the caliphs, even previous caliphs. For example, an imam that comes afterwards, after Ma'mun and Harun. Harun al-Rashid lived at the time of Imam Qadim alayhi salam and killed Imam Qadim alayhi salam. Ma'mun then partly Imam Reza alayhi salam and Imam Qadim, and then he killed Imam Reza. But then other Imams, Imam Jawad, Imam Hadi, Imam Askari, or during their time, he says, we don't find even a single hadith that our Imams criticized translation of those works, philosophical works, religious works from other cultures into Arabic. They didn't say, why you are confusing people, why you are, bringing other, things. So this shows that even if their enemies did something, but they found it Islamically okay, because Islam is not against knowing other cultures, studying other cultures, if they have something good to benefit from. Yes, we have in Quran everything, but we as ordinary people are not able to understand everything from the Quran. Rasulullah, yes. Rasulullah didn't need to go to any school, didn't need to ask people to translate for him, Greek philosophy. But we are not like that. We have to follow conventional methods of learning. And he told us, "Utlubul ilm walau bisin." If we were only supposed to learn from the Quran and have no other teaching and education and reading and study, why we should be encouraged to go even up to China? So he says, we don't find a hadith that this issue, this attempt of Khulafa, is considered as a heresy. And say one of the things that, for example, they did against Islam was that they translated or commissioned people to translate Greek philosophical works into Arabic. No, we don't find such a thing. Then he comes to the hadith of Imam Qadim alayhi salam, and he says, referring to this ayah, فَبَشِّرْ عِبَادِ الَّذِينَ يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقَوْلَ فَيَتَّبِعُونَ أَحْسَنَهُ أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ هَدَاهُمُ اللَّهُ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُهْتَدُونَ. There are two ayahs from Surah Zumar. Imam Qadim said, Ya Hisham, inna Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala bashara ahl al-aql wal-fahm fi kitabih. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given bishara to whom? The people of aql wal-fahm, the people of reason and understanding. Because it is through reason and understanding that you can do this assessment and then choosing the best. He refers to two statements from Ibn Sina. In many lectures, I have referred to this because they're very beautiful. At one point, he says in Isharat, in his book Al-Isharat wa Tabbihat, he says, Man ta'awwada an yusaddiqa bighayr dalil faqad inkhala'a min al-kaswat al-insaniyya. Whoever is used to accept without reason. If someone accepts once without reason, Okay, we say it's a mistake. Too wise without. But if a person has the habit of accepting things without reason, when they see something on TV or on internet or hears something from people, he accepts. He doesn't ask for reason. He doesn't ask for evidence. He accepts. He says this person is no longer enjoying humanity, because humanity is rationality, and rationality is reasoning and asking for evidence. So we should not accept things without reason. On the other hand, we should not reject without reason. He says, كُلَّمَا غَرَعَ سَمْعَكَ مِنَ الْعَجَائِبِ فَذَرْهُ فِي بُقْعَةِ الْإِمْكَانِ مَا لَمْ يَزُدْ كَأَنْهُ قَائِمُ الْبُرْهَانِ. If you see something which is maybe unknown, unfamiliar, strange to you, but as long as you don't have any proof against it, leave it in the world of contingency. Say, yes, it's maybe possible. You don't say it's true, but we cannot say it's false, because just it's strange. I'm not familiar, it's not common. No, you cannot reject like that. One of the things that we find in hadith of Imam Kazim to Hisham is that aql needs ilm. Aql and ilm should be together. Ilm also needs aql. Knowledge and rationality should be together. There are people who have just learned, memorized, but they have not rationalized. It's a problem. If you remember, we had this previously about a person who had trained his son to be a, future teller, or inform the king for unseen things. And, if the king needs, help, if something is lost, etc. And we said the king wanted to test this person, this young person, and took something in his hand. He said, tell me, what is it? So based on what he had memorized from his father, he made two good, guessing. He said, it's circular. He said, yes. He said, is inside of it, empty? The king said, yes. Then when he wanted to make a conclusion, he said, is it the stone for the meal? Sanga asiyab, when they make the flour, there's a big stone which has a hole in the middle, and it's circular. But the funny thing is that this cannot be put in the hand. The answer was ring. So he had memorized well, but he didn't have ability to reason. And this is the problem. In our hadith, we say there are two types of ilm and aql. One is masmu', one is matbu'. And just some people just hear. Hearing is very important, but you have to be able also to internalize it. Anyway, Bacon also has something interesting. Ayatollah Mutahari quotes from, famous philosopher Bacon. He says that some people are like ants. They just collect. They read, they collect, but they don't rationalize, they don't process. Some people are like, silk worm. They just bring things outside themselves. They don't read, they don't collect. They just bring up from themselves. Basically, they fabricate, or, they make nice things, but just nothing new. But he says, honeybees are very good. And some scholars are like honeybees. They collect nectars, the best things, but then they process it as well. So we need knowledge, we need aql together. Imam Kazim said, Ya Hisham, ثُمَّ بَيَّنَ أَنَّ الْعَقْلَ مَعَ الْعِلْمِ. Allah explained in the Quran that knowledge is with or aql is with knowledge. Of course, it's mutual. For example, in Surah Al-Ankabut, verse 43, Allah says, تِلْكَ الْأَمْثَالِ نَضْرِبُهَا لِلنَّاسِ. We make these examples, these parables for people. وَمَا يَعْقِلُهَا إِلَّا الْعَالِمُونَ. But don't understand these except ulama. So aql means understanding, reasoning, needs ilm. Only ulama are going to reason and understand this. Then Imam alayhi salam also says, Ya Hisham, thumma dhamma alladhina la ya'qilun. Allah blamed the Quran those who don't think. The people that they just follow, for example, their ancestors. One of the common things we find is that many prophets were faced with this issue, that what you say is different from what we have learned from our fathers and ancestors. But this is not a good dalil, good reason. Look at what is said. If it is acceptable, accept it. To be new or to be different from what you are used to it doesn't mean that it is bad. Also, sometimes people say, this is old, asatirul awwaleen. We don't accept it because this is what is said in earlier generation. Again, okay. If something is new or old, this is not the main thing. Is it true or not? Is it valid or not? Does it have support of evidence or not? So, Ya Hisham, ثُمَّ ذَمَّ الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ فَقَالَ إِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمُ اتَّبِعُوا مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ قَالُوا بَلْ نَتَّبِعُ مَا أَلْفَيْنَا عَلَيْهِ آبَاءَنَا أَوَلَوْ كَانَ. Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 170. Imam referred to this ayah and said that Allah says, when they are said, follow what Allah has revealed, they say, no, we follow what we have found our fathers been doing and following. And the Quran says, even if their fathers were not reasoning and were not guided, just because they are your fathers. Yes, if your fathers were guided, follow them, no problem. But you say, no, whether my father or ancestors were right or wrong, I have to follow them. This is not acceptable. Or to follow majority just because they are majority. Imam says, no, this is not also accepted in the Quran. For example, in Surah Al-An'am, verse 116, what we have? We have this. وَإِن تُطِعْ أَكْثَرَ مَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ يُضِلُّوكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ إِنْ يَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا الظَّنَّ وَإِنْ هُمْ إِلَّا يَخْرُصُونَ. If you follow and obey, tuti' means obey. If you obey majority of people on the earth, at the time of the Prophet, the majority of the people of the earth were not guided. Maybe even today, although the majority maybe are believers, but unfortunately, this is very fragile. Maybe God forbids it, many people stop practicing any faith, and then even faiths are different. So we should not go by majority. We should see what is right, even if it's accepted by minority, or sometimes maybe no one accepts it. لا تستوحشوا في طريق الهدى لقلة أهله. Amir al-Mu'minin said, if you are on the right path, don't feel lonely because you don't see not many people. Is it right or not? Is it true or not? That's the main thing. Or another thing that Imam Kazim alayhi salam said to Hisham is, if you have some pearls, for example, in your hand, and people say they are almonds, you shouldn't feel sad. You know that you have these pearls, these jewels in your hand. It shouldn't affect you. You shouldn't lose your morale and, get depressed because people don't acknowledge. Or if you have some almonds in your hand and people say, you have jewels, you have pearls, you are great, you are genius. If you don't know, I am just a simple man, I have just some almonds. If people praise you or blame you, but you know what is the truth and they are wrong, it shouldn't affect you. You shouldn't become too excited if mistakenly are praised or if mistakenly are blamed. You shouldn't be too sad. We should follow act, we should follow reason, we should follow evidence, we should follow facts. So this was the first lesson. Inshallah, we'll continue this discussion in future sessions. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.
Jazakallah.
I'm sorry, I ran over time because of the disconnection that we had and wanted to complete the lesson. Sorry for that.
It's okay. Yeah. Is there any question? Yes, Manzoor Hussain. Please mention your city first and you can ask.
Assalamu alaikum, Agha.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Yeah, I am Manzoor Hussain from Pakistan. Currently, I am doing my PhD in computer science from South Korea.
MashaAllah.
Yeah, I have two questions.
Yes.
Related to rationality in Shia, right? Shia belief.
Yeah.
I am Shia, alhamdulillah. The first question is that related to the famous ayah that many khatib quotes in Ashura. For example, the Ya ayyuhatun nafsul mutmainnah. This is very famous quote, right? So my question is that what is the authenticity of this riwayah, right? And who narrated this riwayah? If this ayah was only listening by Imam only, then who did quote this famous riwayah? The second thing is that we use different shabi, for example, Zuljana and Tabut, right? So how we can reason the use of these shabi when it comes to explain our aqidah to non-Shias and non-Muslims?
Yes. The ayah, Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutma'inna irja'i ila rabbika radiyatan mardiyah.
Yeah.
Fadkhuli fi ibadi wadkhul jannah. This was not interpreted by Imam Hussain himself. I didn't understand your question. It's not that Imam Hussain said this and now we ask, who narrated this. We have some hadith that says, of course, ayah is general, but a great example of this ayah is Imam Hussain alayhi salam. When we have some applications in hadith that says, this ayah refers to this case is not limiting the meaning of ayah. It means this is an excellent example that Imam Hussain alayhi salam was nafs mutma'innah, was the tranquil soul, and he returned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala while he was pleasing and pleased. He was pleasing to Allah and was pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have a hadith about this, but not from Imam Hussain, from other Imams. And the second question, this is very important discussion. I have explained this in some lectures. Basically, we have to always consider two things. Any practice that we use in order to mourn, for example, for Abu Abdullah alayhi salam, or for happy occasions, if you want to celebrate, any practice has two sides. One is the form, one is the essence. Essence is expressing our sadness for a great loss. Yeah, if you want to see what is the essence of mourning, means that expressing your great sadness for loss in public. This is the meaning of mourning, aza. Then we have forms of expressing this sadness. Some of these forms maybe are received from Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Some of these forms can be created in an innovative way. Every culture, every era, they can come up with different forms of expressing that essence. But if they are doing this, they have to consider few things. First, the form should be compatible with the essence. We cannot, for example, do happy things and say we want to express our sadness. Okay? We cannot do things which are people doing when they celebrate, happy occasions, and then say, this is azah. But we are very innovative because we want to attract the youths. This is azah. No. The form should be compatible with the essence. The second is that the form should be compatible with Islamic rulings and principles. We cannot do something un-Islamic in order to say we are doing azah. For example, if something is showing lack of, for example, respect for Tawheed, it shows some kind of shirk, for example, it's not acceptable. If something, for example, is harmful for Islamic unity, this is not acceptable. If something is harmful, for example, for your health, you are damaging your body, it's not acceptable. If something is confusing people and make our school, our mazhab, questioned or criticized or attacked, we cannot do it, because every form should be compatible with the essence and plus compatible with Islamic regulations and Islamic principles that we have. If you can observe all these things, then you can be, creative. You can, come up with any ideas, different, for example, ceremonies, different poetry, etc., theater, but principles and rulings of Islam should be always observed. So we have to be very careful. Unfortunately, sometimes we make the forms sacred. We think these forms are as if they are revealed. While this was started maybe a few centuries ago, maybe it was useful at that time, but we have to see, is it still today useful or not? We have to always be checking based on evidence, not based on desires, not based on, personal opinions, based on evidence, on facts. Is this serving the purpose or not? Is it loyal to our message or not?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. I think we need to.
Thank you.
Salam alaikum.
Well, sir, is it what you're telling, that it is the human brain has a capacity to rationalize a thing, and that was the reason that when Adam alayhi salam and Prophet and the angels were given the names, the Adam alayhi salam was able to rationalize the thing, and the angels were not. That's the message you were trying to tell us.
In that particular incident, the focus was on capacity for knowledge. It's not obviously related to reasoning. And, Allah said, Allama Adam al-asma'a kullaha thumma aradhahum. Allah taught Adam all the names. We don't have evidence that it was taught through reasoning. It seems that it was direct gift of knowledge. So knowledge is a very important aspect of rationality, but knowledge can sometimes also be given by Allah directly. So then it's not through reasoning, although it must be compatible with reason. We don't have any knowledge which is against reason. If anything is against reason, it's false. But the reason has to be trained. I cannot say, I don't accept this because, my aql doesn't accept. No, have you trained your aql? Do you know logic? Do you follow logic? Are you able to discuss? Are you able to show a step by step how you came to this conclusion? Just to say my aql doesn't accept this is not aql. So your question is that it seems it was more a matter of knowledge, although it can be connected to reasoning as well, but it's not, emphasized on.
Yes, do we have any other question? Yes, Aga, you can conclude with dua.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma kulli waliyyaka al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan. Salawatuka alayhi wa ala aba'ih. Fi hadhihi as-sa'ati wa fi kulli sa'ah. وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. اللهم اشف مرضانا، اللهم ارحم موتانا، اللهم اغفر لوالدينا ووالدي والدينا، اللهم اقض حوائجنا، اللهم يسر أمورنا، اللهم اجعل عواقب أمورنا خيرا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. التماس دعاء.